There's a book called The Aryan Māori, and Aryan means special people from the gods. So Hitler believed in the Aryan race, and the Aryan people believed they were the babies of the gods. And the Māori believe that they are literally the babies of the gods. And we are the only people who can tell our whakapapa all the way back to the Big Bang. And it's like, we know the Big Bang, and then there's the other gods, and then that's their tamariki are like slightly lesser gods, and so forth until it comes to like our nannies, like Hine Korako, and then and then it gets lesser and lesser until like now. And we remember that because we had to remember that because we were the babies of the gods, and so the babies of the gods have to remember that they're the babies of the gods. Otherwise you're not really a baby of the god if you don't know. Like, if God made us little babies, tamariki, tama is boy and ariki is God. We're the little tamarikis. Then wouldn't he like do his best to help us remember that we are the babies of the gods? So in our traditions we had to remember the creation story, and the reason why we didn't lose that is because a lot of the Pākehā thought the creation story was fake. Oh, those stupid Maoris. They think that there's gods like Tāne and Kiwa and Hine Korako, but actually they were real. We are the babies of the gods, and we even know our whakapapa all the way back, because Te Moana Nui a Kiwa is the sacred sea of Kiwa. Well, Kiwa was the divine water spirit, and Te Moana Nui a Kiwa is the big sea of Kiwa, and Kiwa is actually Kiva. That's what the Hamoans or the Samoans say. They say Kiva, and Kiva was actually Shiva, and Shiva lived in the Himalayas, the highest mountain inside a cave, and his hairs were the divine water that comes down the Ganges. So according to the Indian and Himalayan beliefs, is that Shiva, who was like a really handsome, beautiful, good-looking Māori dude with long, beautiful hair, his hairs were the sacred holy water, and they went down to the Ganges from the Himalayas, and they went into Te Moana Nui a Kiwa, the sacred water of God. And that's why people swim and bathe in the Ganges today, even though it's quite dirty, because they believe that Kiva or Shiva or Kiwa is still hanging out in his cave in the Himalayas, and they have a shrine there, and people do a pilgrimage every year, and they go up and they offer him treats and stuff, and they love him because he's obviously a handsome Māori dude. Yeah, and that I've heard another kōrero is that we were the children of Kiwa, and Kiwa's hairs were the seaweed, and we were the children that brushed the hairs of Kiwa, like taking care of him, like little kaitiaki. Like, his seaweed is there and we're like brushing it. Oh, there's some seaweed, we'll go brush it. Pretty, and we're so angelic and beautiful in the old days. Yeah, so it's really interesting because now with the creation myths with India and their gods, they also have an Ariki god in India, and they also have a lot of the similar kind of tikanga that we have as well. And it was approximately 4,000 years that the Indo-Iranian peoples who lived in the Himalayas fled from war or genocide. They fled down the Gandhis and in their boats, and they came all the way across the bottom of Australia. And then they came over to these islands, and then they did trade and carried on and had, named Te Moana Nui Akiwa, and that's where that name comes from. That comes from the gods. It's kind of divine. Also, Hine Korako is a divine water spirit. Not as high up as, obviously, Shiva, but she kind of like is a baby one coming down a little bit. She lives in a cave, and the maunga that she lives in was the same maunga that Maui, when Maui cut his finger, Maui the god, but like kind of like a lesser god as well, because each generation they get lesser, because Maui was like 2,000 years ago, so Shiva was like 4,000 years ago, and Maui is like 2,000 years ago. And when Maui fished up to Ika Maui, he didn't have any like fish bait because his brothers were bullies and they didn't like him, and they didn't give him any fish bait for his hook. So he cut his finger and got the blood from there, put it on the hook, and he fished up to Ika Maui, the big stingray, and the spot where Maui's blood, blue blood, hooked the fish. So the blood finger hooks the fish and brings it up is my maunga whakapunaki, and that's where Te Reina Waterfall is, and that's where Hine Korako lives inside. And the blood of Maui. So that obviously, that creation story must indicate that, the bloodline, literally like a bloodline. And Maui was nice, and his brothers were bullies, and they chopped up the stingray and made all the mountains. But Maui said, leave this one alone. This is a sacred waka. This is a sacred ikara of gods. This is the Te Ika Maui. And don't kill this fish because we love her, and this fish is going to be an island for my mokopuna. So leave her alone. So I just wanted to point out that the reason why Maui pointed to the spot on the sacred fish of gods, Te Ika Maui, and he's pointed to Te Reina Waterfall, and he was trying to make sure that everyone knew in the creation story that that was the spot, because the ones from there were the original inhabitants. They were from the Taniwha race, and they were friendly, and they had a direct bloodline link to the gods. And with that blood string to his mokopuna, he was able to help them when they were in trouble, and they didn't even know that they were getting helped. They just thought they were really, really lucky every time they did stuff. Like, miraculously, they just achieved all the stuff. They didn't know how. But it was because Maui was just helping them with his bloodline. But when things got a bit dicey, and he realised, one of the mokopunas is a little bit standing out a little bit too much. She might get hurt. He calls up Shiva to get some help. So he gets his shell and he calls up Shiva, who's staying up in the Himalayas in his little cave, big cave, and he's like, Shiva, wake up. And Shiva, the beautiful Shiva god with his beautiful hair and perfect face, he's like, hi Maui, how are you? Is everything okay over there? And Maui was like, I think I might need some help over here. I got this mokopuna from the Hine Korako going around telling everyone the royal secrets. And she's probably going to get killed. And Hine Korako's not that happy either, because now Hine Korako has to leave the cave and go hang out somewhere else, because there's mokopuna with the big waha is going around telling everyone like a promo girl that she's like the special Aryan of the Aryan race. And I can't handle her. She's just too much. Come and help me, Shiva. And Shiva's like, it's okay. She comes from the sacred Waka of gods. She'll be fine. She'll be fine because she's divine. How about I make her the Taniwha Hine Shiva embassy? Then she will have the holy sea of the holy sea. She'll be protected. And then Maui was like, Shiva, you don't know what this island has turned into. I'm almost embarrassed to call it Te Ika Maui. It's my island, and my mokopuna are getting put into prison every time and snuffed out. And there's just so many kaupapas around. How did they multiply? Who invited the kaupapas? We had specific rules. This was specifically the god zone, and all the other royalty and all the other gods knew that this was the spot that we don't hurt. All the other royalties on board, what's wrong with these people on these islands? And Shiva was like, yeah, I think it's because they've been experimented on by weirdos. I'll be right there. And then Shiva comes over, and Shiva looks around and goes, the only way to fix this is if we do a diplomatic mission for the sacred babies of the gods, the people of Te Moananui. And then they'll all be healed with my magical water, because I am the most divine and the most beautiful with beautiful hairs. And then Shiva spoke to me, and Shiva said, you should make an embassy. And I was like, I don't have any money, and I don't even have a house. And Shiva was like, we'll make it a sacred tabernacle in the spirit realm, and that will protect you. And I was like, okay, because I was so that I just do what the two punas want. And then I was like, oh, I'm gonna make an embassy. An embassy needs a logo. So I thought, oh, I'll do my Nana Hine Korako, because she was a fish. And I come from the sea people. So I made it very maritime. So that's what I did. Had a logo, and we did the cards, and we have a diplomatic mission for the people of the Pacific, because the gods told me to heal everyone. Because the only way to heal everyone who's been so hurt is to bless them all with the sacred waters. So that's what we're doing. It's a funny world we live in. Who would have thought, if I told my nana, if I was a tamariki and in the 80s, right, and if I spoke to my nana and if I told her that when I'm an adult, we are going to be given diplomatic immunity, Pākehā are going to be nice to us, we are going to be recognised as a nation of the people of the Pacific, Te Moananui. All of the lands that were lost from Raupatu will not be allowed to like keep getting desecrated, because we actually weren't under New Zealand anyway. We were part of Te Moana Nui Kiwa, Te Ika Maui and Nutarine. And if I told my nana that we could effectively bring world peace, which is like so cliche, but that is actually a prophecy from Putahi Marae. So you know how you've got like the Hawke's Bay, and then you've got Napier, and you've got Mahia and Gisborne, and then you've got Wairoa, and you've got the Wairoa River, and if you go right up to the top of the Wairoa River, you've got the Hangaroa Forest, and then you've got like Te Reina Waterfall where Hine Korako lives, and Whakapunaki Maunga or mountain, and then behind that you've got the Uruweras, and then in the middle of the Uruweras you've got the Waikere Moana Lake. There is a marae called Putahi Marae, and it's kind of past Wairoa. You go up Wairoa, then you get to Frasertown, and then you could kind of slightly go above that, and that's Putahi. There's literally a marae there in a house in an urapa, and it's just before you get to the Uruwera Forest. That is one of my maraes. I've got heaps of them because our Hawke's Bay, where we're from, our tupuna only married from our area, because if you're from Mahia, you'd only marry those from Wairoa and only marry those from Te Hoki, and then a few generations would happen, and then you were allowed to then marry back into Mahia, and then back into Wairoa, and back into Tongoio. And it was kind of like a lot of my cousins and aunties are like related 8 times over, because we were all married in, because Hine Korako was Taniwha. She was the highest. She was like the matriarch, higher than the husband. Her ranking was higher, and so people didn't want to lose that bloodline. Yeah, so that's why you get heaps of us Kazis from Te Hoki that are also from Tongoio, that are also from Mahia, that are also from Wairoa. And so our families were really fussy, and they'd only want to marry in the bay. Yeah, so that's why we're special. But the prophecy of Putahi Marae was written by a tohunga. Now, the tohungas are the wise people, they come from Wairoa and Waikeru Moana, the lake. That's where, like, we literally come from there, because Hine Korako, the shape-shifting mermaid, she comes from there, and so she was super wise in a godly way, and so her children had special abilities to see things and know the correct thing all the time, and they were like walking Googles, like literally, like just brainy, but kind of fishy, because like we had like fishy traits. Does that make sense? We had marine. We were very maritime, because we would dwell in the water. Like Pani of the Reef was a real girl. She is my nanny from Ngāti Tū Hapu in Tongoio, and she was a girl that was like a normal girl, like a pretty little, perfect little hourglass shaped pretty girl who lived in the water, because she felt better in there. So she lived in the water, and her son had aqua is it aqua like features, or aquatic. Her son had aquatic features, and some of the people had deformities, like a hole like a hole in their throat. I heard of a story from a hapu in, I think it's Te Tapuika hapu, and that her uncle, like these are staunch people, like do not mess with the tohunga Wairoa peoples, because they are psychic and they will probably beat you up if you dishonor them. They're just like boom. Yeah, so just be mindful of that. So Tapuika, that makes sense. They were special people. They held the knowledge as well. And I met a girl who was about my age. I'm 44, and we were meeting. We were just like randomly talking. I didn't even know her. I just randomly like saw her and we started talking. And when I was telling her the kōreros, it made sense to her. So all of the missing pieces in her family stories kind of made sense because I was filling in her missing pieces. And so that's what we do. Before long, we're all going to be complete with our memories. And her people in her family, some of them had a deformity, like a hole in their throat or something. It's for breathing. And that's like a dolphin. Like dolphins have the hole, but they have it on the head. And Pania of the Reef from Tongoio, my nana, she had, a son with aquatic features. But Hine Korako is different because not every taniwha can have a baby or a human baby, because it's like one species and then another species trying to breed. It's not going to happen. But she, in her group of family members, she had the shape-shifting ability. That was her special power. She could shape into a woman and have ovaries and a womb and give birth to one single human baby. That was enough for her because she just left the baby and the husband because he made her change the nappy once or something. Yeah, and that dishonored her. She was like high up goddess, and he was a simple human, and how dare he treat her like that. So he got punished and she left him. She didn't want to have any more babies to humans. But yeah, over time there was heaps of us mokopuna. Yeah, so up the river of Wairoa there is a marae called Putahi Marae. And that's one of my maraes because I've got heaps of maraes because our family had to marry into each other. So we're like related eightfold over in the Hawke's Bay. And I just got like 8 hapu and heaps of maraes. And there is a prophecy of Putahi Marae that said that the one who builds the sacred tabernacle will bring the Ark of the Covenant into the sacred tabernacle, and then world peace and all the tribes will come together and there'll be 2,000 years of peace. And that was by the tohunga Mātinga, and it was the 12 totara logs, the 12 sacred totara logs. And the story was that Mātinga back in the day, probably in the Te Kuti times, when there was like real kind of like, Pākehā and Māori battles, back in those times in the tohunga, Mātinga from Putahi Marae, so he must be my whānau, he had a prophecy that there was going to be a tabernacle built out of these 12 sacred totara logs, and that whoever built it will bring the Ark of the Covenant into the sacred tabernacle, and then all the tribes of the world will be brought together, and then there will be 2,000 years of peace. Okay, so I was like, am I the only one hearing this? Because Like, this is really significant because, okay, oh, and it said the one from the east will bring the peace. So I was like, okay, my last name is Eastic, and I know I come from the Middle East because, hello, look at me. I'm clearly Middle Eastern. Look at this gold. Look at this jumper. Look at this Saturday night story time that I'm doing. So yeah, and the sacred tabernacle in my mind is, well, Te Moana Nui Kiwi Embassy. It's not like I don't have a building. It's like a spiritual thing. I just do the mahi, but I put Hine Korako, my nana, the mermaid, on the Te Moana Nui Kiwi embassy kind of like logo and on our cards to protect us, because I am Indigenous because I come from Hine Korako and there's not many of us. There's just 2 hapu. She only had 1 child and we were here before the humans arrived. And because you don't get to tell stories like this if you're not Indigenous, because Indigenous people, we like to tell stories because it's our oral tradition. So, and then I thought to myself, okay, it's sacred. Oh, the Ark of the Covenant comes inside. And I was like, well, the Ark is a boat. The Ark of the Covenant is the boat of gods. My granddad was Tamati Arikinui, the captain of the Sacred Waka of Gods. My other granddad was Maui, who named Te Waka a Maui, which is also a Sacred Waka of Gods. And our Wakapapa or Whakapapa is like a sacred boat from the stars, and that's also what the Andes people think. It's like we are the babies of the gods. And he whakaputanga or he wakaputanga, that's kind of like a boat, like a special amazing boat that, you know, like this amazing he whakaputanga like was found at the nick of time, that is like very godly. And Te Wakaminia was a special hui in the sacred realm. Like, you couldn't even go to the Wakaminia if you weren't already in a hui with the gods. Just not regular people could go. You had to be getting divine instructions from the tupuna, and then the tōhunga would get those instructions, and then they would instruct the tino rangatira to represent the hapu. And all of us Māori, we have hapus, so we all can participate in this. And the hapu has a territory, like actual defined territories, like a postcode. And iwis came along and amalgamated them all and tried to snuff out everyone again for money. So that's why we've got to teach people about their hapus. But you can always do that, because if you go back to your urapa, all of our tupunas, when they got buried, they had their name, they had the day they were born, and then the day they died, then they'd have their hapu on the tombstone, etched in stone. So it can't be changed with a slip of the pen, and those records can't get lost like the Māori land courts just miraculously lose all of the land stuff. It's just one high staff for another with the New Zealand government and all of the entities that come along, and they're just siphoning money out, and it's just like, no, that has to stop. So I felt like the prophecy of Putahi Marae was really speaking to me, because the one who would bring the Ark of the Covenant into the sacred tabernacle, which I believe the sacred tabernacle is the Te Moana Nui Kiwa or the Te Wakaminga o na Hapu. It's all sacred, it's all to do with boats and stuff, and an ark is a boat, and an ark is also a rainbow, and Te Reina is like where Hine Korako comes from. Tadaina is a rainbow. And Noah saw a rainbow after the big flood. And I'm wearing a rainbow jumper from the 90s. So it's all very Tadaina, rainbow child. It's all very like arcs and boats and maritime and mermaids and sea passes and Taniwha Hine Korako and we're the babies of the gods. And yeah, that's my marae. It really stood out to me. So I don't know if you guys remember in 1988 there was Cyclone Bola and the Wairoa River basically washed away the Wairoa Bridge, and it was massive. And we lived in Bayview. We thought that our house was going to blow away. It was scary. Cyclone Bola was so massively like intense, and it just thrashed the East Coast. And I believe I know why, because obviously the gods were upset with us because we were just, you know, not doing the right thing in the 80s, 1988. And but before that, there was, when Martinga was alive, the Tohunga, I think it was back in the times of Te Kuti and all that, like quite a long time ago, there was another massive storm, and the Waikiri Moana Lake basically flooded. And it flooded so much that the water came down. Teraina waterfall just gushed down. And there was 12 totara logs that and 12 totara logs miraculously like went through the water canal, the magical logs, and down the Wairoa River out to the sea. There was 12 totara logs, and Martinga foresaw this. And everyone was like, whoa, you are a Tohunga. And he was like, yeah, of course I am. I'm from Wairoa, baby. We are the Tohunga. And then 11 logs got washed up somewhere along the beach. Along that kind of spooky beach by, you know, Wairoa, somewhere along there. Kind of feel like the sea is going to consume me sometimes. But I've never ever been unsafe in the water. Like Napier Beach is hideous. I just swam there as a little girl, didn't know how to swim, and I never got drowned. Like, it is like this. Really, really steep, lots of shingle, massive waves, and massive undertow. Fully grown adults die at that beach every single year. Do not swim at Napier Beach. Do not swim at Bayview Beach. That sea is alive, and it's literally like the most dangerous but beautiful beach. Like, so beautiful and pretty in Napier, and you can become allured by it, and it looks calm sometimes. Like the water will look calm and look beautiful, and you jump in and it would be like straight down shingle with these fucking hidden underneath undertows, just literally will consume you. You can't get out, and you can't get up the shingle, and you die, and heaps of people die every single year there. It's kind of a spooky beach. So anyway, so Wairoa beaches aren't kind of like that. They're kind of like not that bad. Some of them, actually, the water there is kind of a bit shocking. In Nuhaka and Mohaka and that bridge, oh my god, the roads there. Yeah, so the logs went down to the beach, 11 of them, and the 12th log went on a tiki tour around Taniwha Hine. It didn't want to hang out with the other 11 logs. It was a complete loner. Just went off on its own. Probably went to Hawaii to, you know, following in the steps of Hine Korako. But years later, that log washed up back with the other 11 logs. And, you know, back in those times, it was really hard if some totara logs washed up on the beach. It's not like you had, I don't know, like machinery to move the logs. They're kind of heavy, and they kind of piled up and they stayed there, and no one ever made the sacred tabernacle until I came along and I made an imaginary kind of sacred tabernacle in my mind. Te Moana Nui Kiwa Embassy, because Te Moana Nui Kiwa is the sacred sea of Kiwa. Kiwa was the divine water spirit, and Te Moana Nui Kiwa is the big sea of Kiwa, and Kiwa is actually Kiva. That's what the Hamoans or the Samoans say. They say Kiva, and Kiva was actually Shiva, and Shiva lived in the Himalayas, the highest mountain inside a cave, and his hairs were the divine water that comes down the Ganges. And then Shiva spoke to me, and Shiva said, "You should make an embassy." And I was like, "I don't have any money, and I don't even have a house." And Shiva was like, "We'll make it a sacred tabernacle in the spirit realm, and that will protect you." And I was like, "Okay," because I was so that I just do what the two punas want. And then I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna make an embassy. An embassy needs a logo." So I thought, "Oh, I'll do my Nana Hine Korako, because she was a fish, and I come from the sea people." So I made it very maritime. So that's what I did. Had a logo, and we did the cards, and we have a diplomatic mission for the people of the Pacific, because the gods told me to heal everyone, because the only way to heal everyone who's been so hurt is to bless them all with the sacred waters. So that's what we're doing. But so then Shiva went away back to his big maunga. And also, Hawaii has the biggest maunga in the world. It comes up from the bottom of the sea, and it's higher than Mount Everest. But you don't see all the bottom bit under the sea. You only see the top bit. And I think it's shaped like an M. M for mermaid. M for Mew. Yeah. And so Shiva goes back to his big maunga, the biggest maunga, because he's the biggest, highest god of us little babies. And Hine Korako is in her little baby maunga, whakapunaki. Little baby maunga, a little baby god in there. And her mokopuna went on a big diplomatic mission around the islands. So like a promo girl. But then people started being a bit mean to Hine Korako's mokopuna. And they said, "We don't recognise your embassy." And then I was like, but it's the sacred, holy sea of the holy sea, because an embassy means holy sea. Te Moana Nui Kiwa is the holy sea of the sacred divine god, Shiva. So it's the holy sea of the holy sea. You've got to recognise it, because that's the highest. They're like, "You've got no qualifications. Who are you?" I said, "My name is Monica. Monica means mermaid." And I'm a Timu, because I come from the Takitimi waka, the highest waka, the sacred waka of gods. My granddad was the captain of the sacred waka of gods. And they're like, "Oh, I think you've got to come back on bail and all that." and I didn't want to go to jail or bail jail. That wasn't fair, because I was getting bullied. Yeah, so that's the story. I wonder if one day I'll be in the whakapapa stories and they'll say there was this mermaid human called Monica. She was named after the mermaids. And the moon ika. And she was from Hine Hapu. She was Hine Korako's mokopuna. And she was given all the blessings into her mind, and she could talk to all the tūpunas that were really high up tūpunas. And she made a sacred tabernacle because she come from Putahi Marae, and she finished off Matinga's prophecy, who was finishing off Te Kuti's prophecy. Yeah. And she wrote the Kaupapa Suppression Action 2020, which actually protected the Te Wakamingi on a hapu, made sure there was no kaupapas allowed in there, and it protected the he whakaputanga, because the he whakaputanga wasn't going to cooperate. It wouldn't let anyone use it until it was being protected. The clue was in Article 3, that we could write laws, and the key was you couldn't really use the he whakaputanga until you protected it, and it was encoded. So Article 3 said that we could write laws, frame laws, pass laws. And so the first law that was done was the one that I did, and it protects us all from kaupapas, and it protects the he whakaputanga. I protected the protectors, and I protected the Te Wakamingia from being infiltrated, because it has to say stay pure, because it was a sacred hui in the spiritual realm. Not everyone could be there. Yeah, you couldn't be at the Te Wakamingia hui in the spiritual realm. It wasn't a physical. Kind of was a physical, but it was like you couldn't enter until the tūpunas let you enter. They're very fussy. Yeah. And then, some other tūpunas told me to make this video. Actually, make this video on Anzac weekend for some reason. Probably the tūpunas that got sent over to the 28th Battalion, and that I had to quickly make this video in Anzac weekend, and let everyone know the kawa and the kaupapa from the tūpunas, so that everyone can start fresh and have some good instructions. Yeah, so that's what I'm doing. There was 12 total logs, and Matinga foresaw this, and everyone was like, whoa, you are a tohunga. And he was like, yeah, of course I am. I'm from Wairoa, baby. We are the tohunga. And we remember that because we had to remember that because we were the babies of the gods, and so the babies of the gods have to remember that they're the babies of the gods. Otherwise, you're not really a baby of the god if you don't know. Like, if God made us little babies, tamariki, tama is boy and ariki is God. We're the little tamarikis. Then wouldn't he make us, wouldn't he like do his best to help us remember that we are the babies of the gods? So in our traditions, we had to remember the creation story, and the reason why we didn't lose that is because a lot of the Pākehā thought the creation story was fake. Oh, those stupid Maoris. They think that there's gods like Tāne and Kiwa and Hine Korako, but actually they were real. We are the babies of the gods, and we even know our whakapapa all the way back, which is kind of hard. Yeah, and that's why it's good to know your hapu, because if you know your hapu, then you know you're from that family, and like you don't go and make another hapu. There were some people that told me they were making a new hapu. I was like, why? You're basically going to start from now. You'll have no whakapapa backwards. And the guys that were doing, I was like, you guys are guys. You can't start a hapu. You're men. The women make the hapu, and the hapu doesn't change. It's the postal code of your hapu territory. It's not like changing a name. You can marry like one husband and change your name, but you always know your whakapapa because you would know your hapu. So when the iwis was invented in the 1850s, Dr. Taniwha Hine, he told us that, but he sadly passed away last year. He had a PhD in he whakaputanga, and there's that wonderful video of him expressing and sharing his wisdom with us before he died. A lot of people like Dr. Taniwha Hine, who would be one of my whanaunga, because I'm Ngāti Kahu as well, because I'm kind of Ngāpuhi as well, even though I kind of resonate more with kahununu. But we have to, even though if we squabble with Ngāpuhi, it was Ngāpuhi who held that mana for all of us. Like, all of us. Kahununu didn't hold that mana. They were too peaceful. Ngāpuhi were our protectors, and they held on to that mana of the he whakaputanga, and it was hidden. And then the tino rangatira from Waimahana Bay up past the Kaio, way up north, they were doing the Waimahana land claim, and they travelled down to Wellington to talk to a lawyer, and on the lawyer's desk, and they were in a parliamentary building, by the way, in on the lawyer's desk, underneath a piece of glass, was the he whakaputanga, and they knew what it was. What are the chances of that? I'd say 99.99999% of the population didn't even know what he whakaputanga was. Most likely, if those tino rangatira or elders who had found the original he whakaputanga, if they had not have discovered it and recognised it, because their tupuna had autographed it and their whānau stories and tradition was kept alive for all those generations, even though the he whakaputanga was hidden and people tried to attempt to forgerate it, and they kept, that was a tonga to them, that was a special thing, and they kept that alive. But those elders were passing off now, and like I believe if they had have died, that and if somebody else had seen the he whakaputanga, the original, I don't think they would have recognised it. I think we were literally one generation away from losing that tonga forever. But the tupunas were watching, and the tupunas from Ngāpuhi were like, hell no. We will make those tamariki and mokopuna go down, do a big land claim, and find the real he whakaputanga. And that was done in about the 1999 or 2000s or something like that. Yeah, and it's taken them 21 years to really get exposed, because every single time that the whānau hapu and the mokopuna of the autographies and the various ones were trying to do a wānanga and trying to learn, and they didn't even know how to read the dialect of the he whakaputanga. That took them some time, and when they all felt like tōhunga and elders from all around tried to decipher it, luckily there was some those wisdom keepers with the old language, and they could decipher it. But it took them a few years, and there was hui. And even though I always complain, I hate going to Waitangi, my cousins up there are bullies, they held the mana for us because no one else was going to. And let's face it, no one wants to mess with Ngāpuhi at the end of the day. We all go, Ngāpuhi, but no one is going to mess with Ngāpuhi. So I just thought I don't know, I must have had a Ngāpuhi tōhunga just speak to me now. Who's my Ngāpuhi tōhungas? I come from Ngāti Kahu, so probably there'd be heaps of them. Yeah, they just wanted me to do a big shout out to Ngāpuhi, because I usually don't do that. I've been quite disrespectful. So, yeah, Saturday night, there's no TV. I'm wearing a jumper and I'm doing a shout out to Ngāpuhi from the tūpuna, who are finally seeing their mokopuna come to the realisation that the he whakaputanga is real. And then I came along, Kahanunu, with the hi, I'm from Kahanunu, just come straight in and start promoting it like some kind of promo girl from Amway in the 80s. It's like promoting, going around so proud. I couldn't even pronounce it properly. It's yeah. I'm going to do a video with a Ngāpuhi elder, and he's going to pronounce he whakaputanga properly, the proper way, for the tamariki to learn, because that is important. Yeah, and the way he said it's so much better the way I say it. But that's okay, because at least we're discussing it, and even if you can't pronounce the he whakaputanga properly, like me, at least we're talking about it. It's not something that can be swept under the rug, and a lot of people died. Like Dr. Manuka Henare, because I'm also a Manuka as well, so I'm kind of related to all you guys. Ngāpuhi, I'm related to bloody most of you. He passed away last year, but all the hard work, like when he got a PhD in he whakaputanga, so he went into the dark side, being New Zealand government. I don't go into there, I stay in the light, don't do New Zealand government stuff. But heaps of our people have gone into the dark side to fight the battle, the never-ending battle, forever, like infinity, just fight, because you're really not going to get heard. But somehow people really liked Manuka Henare because he was so wise, and he was, kind of cool that he was a doctor in he whakaputanga. But yeah, it's sad. People think that they have to get university degrees to then have to tell us what our tūpunas can tell us if we receive the, if we don't ignore the messages from the tūpuna. If you can do that, then you can follow the instructions. Yeah, but so many people died, and they were helping our people, like Mapiria, Hohepa Mapiria. He came over, he was the Queen's Counsel, and he co-wrote the Te Ture Whenua Act. And the problem with any act in government is, as soon as there's a change in government, the new government comes in and messes around with any progress that the last government did, and they just write us out of the script. And so that's why we have to remain quite separate from them, but we can make our own laws and tikanga. We don't have to go into the dark side. It's just annoying. New Zealand government is just so annoying. But yeah, when I first started doing this, a lot of people thought I was crazy. I'm like, oh, why is this Pākehā girl going around everywhere like a promo girl for He Whakaputanga? Like, I don't care. I mean, I was just so shameless. I was just going around just so happy that we had that. Yeah. But we should be thankful to our tūpunas, because we still have the wisdom in most of us. Even if we don't speak Māori, we know our waka, our maunga, our awa, and we know our hapu. And if you don't know your hapu, it's okay. You can find the hapu because you know your maunga and your waka and your awa, which is the river. And if you just know those things and you know where your marae is, then you can find your hapu, because the hapu doesn't change. Yeah, that's so cool. And neither does our creation story. And if Pākehā were threatened by our creation story, they would have destroyed it and not like did books on it and make it like, I don't know, Victoria University topic or something like that. But by disregarding our ancestral lineage, they've actually made it worse for themselves, because it is real. And yeah, what was I going to do? I'm bored. I don't have any mokopuna here to tell stories to, so I'm going to tell stories to you. So maybe, yeah. So Tamatea Ariki Nui sang a song or a chant to get like help from the mermaid Hine Korako. Yeah. Wouldn't that be cool if we could just sing a song and then we got help? Oh my god. I promised my viewers I wouldn't sing, because I made a whole bunch of like kids friendly videos where I sang, and the adults were like, we don't like this, Monica, can you please not sing? But yeah, it was funny. At least they can't deny the He Whakaputanga, because it's on permanent display now. It's at the He Tohu exhibition at the National Library of New Zealand in Pipitea, opposite the Beehive. Permanent display. And so is Te Tiriti o Waitangi, and that means that it is recognised. But the only thing slowing our people down is they haven't come to terms with the fact that it's recognised, and some people still think they have to go somewhere else to get permission. It's like, no, we don't have to keep going to the United Nations, we don't have to keep going to Westminster, Westminster, is it Westminster or the House of Lords? Even though I'd love to go there, I want to speak at the House of Lords. Yeah, that's what I want to do. But we don't have to do that. It's like, what we have to do is follow the instructions on the He Whakaputanga and get on with it. And we also have to be diplomatic, because our tūpuna don't like the squabblings. Our Ngāpuhi tūpuna and our Kahanunu tūpuna and our Maniapoto tūpuna getting really like frustrated, because the only thing that we had to do was play nice and get on with it. We don't have to do anything else. It's all there ready to go. We don't even have to build any buildings. All the buildings and infrastructure is built. The railways are built. It's all there. We just got born at the right time that we didn't have to build the infrastructure. We just walk straight into the He Whakaputanga, receive the blessings, received diplomatic immunity because of the flag, and all we have to do is not fight and get on with it. But no, because humans are, I don't know, getting worse. But yeah. Maybe if I sing a song, some tino rangatira will come and save me. But it feels weird, and I'm not going to sing a song, but I actually want to. But no, I'm not going to, but I actually want to so bad. I want to sing songs, and I want to make kids videos, and because you don't get to tell stories like this if you're not Indigenous, because Indigenous people, we like to tell stories because it's our oral tradition.